Hello, America. Bruce Bongardt here, virtual presidential candidate under the Proudican Party. Once again, this event is being sponsored by www.cf2008ontape.ning.com. Question and answers, Section 5, Educational Issues. Question number 1, are there any educational issues or solutions you would like to address? Well, before I talk about issues or solutions, or what I like to call prolutions, which are progressive solutions, because they combine a variety of those issues into a solution, I'd like to talk about my educational background, just very briefly. I grew up in Bel Air, Maryland, and went to a Catholic elementary school, a public middle school, and then a private high school, John Carroll High School, also in Bel Air, Maryland. After graduating from high school, I ended up going to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Prescott, Arizona, whereas my brother, on the other hand, he ended up going to John McCain's alma mater, the United States Naval Academy. So my brother, Steve, he became the naval aviator of the family, whereas I stressed the creative engineering aspect or whatever. So after Embry-Riddle, though, I was only there for about a year, and then I was getting a little homesick, so I decided that I would move out to California, where my parents now moved to, and I worked for a little bit, and then I went to Chaffey Community College for about 2 years, graduated from there with a variety of different Associate of Science degrees, as well as a whole bunch of units. I then worked for a little bit more, and I transferred over to the University of California, Riverside for their physics program. Well, I discovered pretty quickly that I was not a theoretical physicist, and so after working a little bit more, I transferred to the California State Polytechnic University because it was a very hands-on, applied type college. So after 2.5 years, I actually graduated from there, finally, with a mechanical engineering degree. Well, my whole coursework, and I'm a little embarrassed by this, but it took me about 10 years to get through my education. But here's the thing. Education is very important. Perseverance in education is the most critical thing. Don't worry about failing or having problems or stopping and starting or whatever. The most important thing is that you get back up on your feet and back on that horse again. There will always be people that are going to be better than you, and there will always be people that can help you develop to the next level. And that's exactly the case with teachers and tutors. They're there for you. They're a resource for you. So always make use of those people to help you out. Get that network moving. Well, so now getting back to issues and solutions. What I have developed here is going to be a sort of a non-related type of approach from a funding approach, combining a variety of different issues. And the 3 issues that I'm going to concentrate on are healthcare, education, and housing. So all 3 of those are going to tie together in what I call a bonded for life prolution. Now what exactly is that? It basically rewards and promotes the general welfare of one's life. All U.S. citizens would receive a personal life bond each year. So the exact dollar amount that this is going to be is at this point not very important, and those details need to be worked out. And whether or not it's going to be equal for each person or distributed based on incomes, that is a detail that will still need to be worked out. But the idea is that each and every year a person will receive one of these personal life bonds. Qualifications, pretty simple. All you have to do is be alive, and you have to be a U.S. citizen in good standing. So the bonds can only be used by you and for only those 3 specific purposes, being health care, education, and housing. Now what happens if you pass away? Those bonds, those unused bonds, are actually then thrown into a public life fund, and they will be then reassigned by the government to fund some other government subsidy programs for others for education, healthcare, and housing. They would be managed by a consortium of federal and state investors and accountants, and whether or not these bonds would actually be taxable or not my territory. That would be something that would need to be discussed. But here's the interesting part. So now, how are we going to fund these bonds? Well, here's what I think we should do. Here in America, we've got a Social Security program. We've got Medicare and Medicaid. Well, if we took the average age of workers in the U.S., and let's just say it's 45 years of age, and everybody who's currently 45 or older, they would continue on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid the way it currently is. Okay? Now, they could opt to go with this bonded for life approach. That would be up to them, and their funds would then be delegated over to that. However, everybody who's under 45 would automatically be in this bonded for life approach. And so what we would do is we would take half of the surplus funds that currently exist now for Medicare, Medicaid, and for Social Security, and we would take half of those funds and we would basically redistribute that into these bonds. Now, I'm not talking about redistribution of wealth here. I'm talking about redistribution of entitlement programs. And specifically, these programs are already designed for you. So now what we're doing is we are bringing technology in the 21st century, I guess, into this basic solution. So question number 2, what role and responsibility should the government have in terms of education? Well, I believe education should be more focused from the perspective of state government run, for everything from private to public to charter to homeschool. All that should be more state delegated type programs. The federal government's responsibility is to sponsor and kick off and initiate these kinds of incentives or these kind of programs, but not necessarily fund these levels of programs. Question number 3, as President, what would you add or remove to improve America's educational standing in the world? Let's face it, America is suffering right now from an educational standpoint. We need to get back to the basics. We need to improve, like I was talking about, our technology base and bring us into the 21st century. The more we create incentives for teachers within our university level sponsorship, the more we can drive up education, the more our ranking in education is going to improve. So we need to bring back a broader based, more higher salary based approach to education. And it's got to be both at the state government level, and it's also got to be sponsored through corporations as well, to try and reintroduce that back into our educational system, because that's where we're kind of having problems right now. There's a gentleman out in Texas, another Texan, his name is Dr. Norm Lefebvre, and what he's doing is he's created a program that's called Paradigm Shift, and it's for underprivileged, special needs children at risk to try and develop better educational programs for them. So everybody should try and sponsor programs similar to his program, or check out his particular program specifically. So question number 4, with the current economic downturn in mind, how should we manage any additional educational costs? Well, right here I'm talking about where we would have this bond initiative introduced, which would be a supplemental funding source for education. Question number 5. Is a new internship program part of your educational goals for America? Well, as I was talking about in Prolution number 2, which was the Energy Technology Quarter, I talked about a program, threw it out there for Senators Obama and McCain, that they introduce this from a educational university level sponsorship type program where university students actually manage and construct this energy technology quarter. So in return for their assistance with that, they would, of course, be able to receive additional, what I call personal life bonds that could be used for education. So there's your program right there from an educational perspective. In terms of education itself, the model that I was talking about with the Proudican counter, which was Prolution number 1, the 3 on, 1 day off, 3 day on approach, I think, is a much more useful approach to education versus a 5-day cramming type approach. It's good to have rest periods in there, study periods in between learning. And so that's the basic approach. Once again, my name is Bruce Bongardt, virtual presidential candidate under the Proudican Party, saying thank you for your attention and take care.